Let's talk about Code's next move in Boruto to Blue Vortex chapter 15. This was by far my favorite part of this latest chapter, and there's quite a lot to talk about, particularly when it comes to Code and Jura. This section starts off with Ryu, who has a pretty goofy personality, and I like the fact that all the Shinju are aloof in their own way, and Jura makes another comment about identity that helps display what identity means to him, as he says that your name is the most fundamental piece of information you need in order to establish your identity. This indicates that Jura sees identity as information based, which is fitting seeing as he's always seeking information, rather than as emotion based, which someone like Matsuri might come to realize. Narratively speaking, this is probably my most anticipated story point, so I'm looking forward to the continuation of this theme as we move forward with the Shinju. Each Shinju serves as their own unique case study in this regard, giving us at least 5 different paths to finding one's identity, whether they come to fruition or not. This is really cool. In any case though, Ryu notices Code spying on them through the claw mark cube, which means Code and the Shinju can all use each other's claw marks whenever they want without their consent, which is supported by something Code does later in the chapter. It's unclear whether this is because all the Shinju were born from Code's chakra imbued in those claw marks, or if this is just true for all claw marks in general. Hypothetically, if a random otsutsuki puts up claw marks on Mars, could Code teleport to those? I'm inclined to believe not, since the claw marks have been directly compared to flying Raijin, and Minato and Tobirama weren't able to teleport to each other's flying Raijin markers whenever they wanted. They can only teleport themselves and anyone in contact with them or their chakra to their own markers, similar to how Code can teleport himself and anyone he touches through his claw marks. In the case of the Shinju, I think they can all use each other's claw marks and Code can also use theirs, because they all share some of Code's chakra via the claw marks they're practically made of, and Code's chakra is also what caused them to evolve in the first place. So in that regard, it's also like flying Raijin. Not that any of this is that important, I just wanted to point it out. In any case though, Ryu yanks Code out of the claw mark cube with his iron sand, and a cool detail about Ryu is that he can either turn his claw marks into iron sand, or he can teleport his iron sand through the claw marks without having to do anything physically. It's unclear which of the two it is, as the iron sand just comes out of his jacket, which is made of claw marks when he grabs Code, so it does look like they're gonna play around with Ryu's abilities a bit and combine his claw marks with his iron sand, which I think is really cool. I said this last chapter, but Ryu has the potential to have arguably the strongest and coolest abilities amongst the Shinju by combining his iron sand with his claw marks. Think about it. If Ryu places a claw mark on your chest like Code used to do, then teleports some iron sand through that claw mark, what can you even do? It's game over. You've already lost. Imagine if Ryu uses Shinki's black iron wings from the anime. Bro's gonna smack a magnetic teleportation beacon on you and attract deadly iron sand spikes towards you, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't dodge the claw mark on your chest thing that Code does. It just appears there randomly. I don't know why Code stopped doing it other than the fact that it's way too OP, but if Ryu does that shit with his iron sand, Bro's literally gonna be unstoppable. I'm very curious what they do and don't allow Ryu to do in battle, because his abilities work too well together. But in any case, Jura tells Ryu to release Code because they all owe their existence to him, while Code gets annoyed that they're not targeting the otsutsuki and reminds them that he is the one who will lead the chakra fruit. Now I know a lot of people are gonna hate on Code for being kinda stupid here, bossing the Shinju around, when he should know they're way stronger than him, given that 3 of them had Boruto corded pretty easily, where Boruto had previously beaten Code pretty easily, and now there's 5 of them. But it is in Code's character to act this way ever since his limiters were removed, so I can't exactly say I'm surprised by this. The Chakra were also previously under his control, and the Shinju were all born from his chakra, so I can also understand why he would think he could still control them, even though Boruto warned him they'd all break free of his control. Maybe one day Code will learn his lesson, but until I see him actually start to change his character in that direction, I'm not gonna expect him to act humbly anytime soon. But anyway, Jura remains calm and wonders what would happen if they ate the chakra fruit instead, and I'm not gonna lie, I kinda want them to. I want Code to eat a chakra fruit as well to see what happens to him and whether or not he remains captivated by Ada, but I also want to know what happens if Jura eats a chakra fruit too. Ideally, we just get to see both of them eat a chakra fruit, but I don't know if that'll happen. It kind of depends on whether they go to another planet, since chances are we're only gonna get to see one fruit from Earth if it ever gets devoured at all. We'll see though. Either way, it's cool that Jura considers the idea to be intriguing, since we know how his curiosity shapes nearly all of his decision making. Code gets mad though and attacks Jura, phasing his claw through a claw mark on the ground and out of Jura's cloak. It was great to see Code use his tactic again. He could have taken out way more people if he kept it up. Sadly for Code though, Jura sniped his hand off without even moving, except for his eyes. He then thanks Code for giving him the ability to think freely and says that he believes Code's life is lacking in motivation, and so he gives Code a task to add some color to his fated life, to find and kill Boruto and his accomplices. If he does so, Jura promises to provide him with the Chakra fruit, and Code obviously agrees since he wanted to kill Boruto anyway. Now I really like this for Code because it gives him something interesting to do. At the end of chapter 4, Code really lacked any direction. His goal was to kill Boruto and eat a Chakra fruit, but he lost to Boruto pretty badly. It was under the impression that the Shinju would devour and kill Boruto on their own, leaving him with nothing to pursue. Of course, he could pursue the rest of his hit list and destroy everything Boruto cares about, but his two primary goals were essentially stolen from him, and the two at the top of his hit list were already taken care of as far as he was concerned, since Sasuke became a tree and Naruto is presumed dead. Code can target Shikamaru whatever, but does that really impact Code? Not really. That's like if Naruto stopped trying to become Hokage because Tsunade became Hokage for him. The point is that Code wanted to kill Boruto himself, just like how Naruto wanted to become Hokage himself. Settling for Shikamaru is underwhelming by comparison. Jura is right. Code was lacking in direction, excitement, and motivation. The color did fade from Code's life because he wasn't pursuing the thing he wanted most. So I think it's great to see Code actually pursue his goals again, with the addition of unknowingly targeting Kashin Koji as well. And while I think Koji is the more interesting target, Boruto's a lot more interesting than people might think. Your first reaction might be, Code already lost to Boruto pretty badly, who cares? But you gotta keep in mind, Boruto came into this latest fight way stronger than ever before, and with a whole new set of ridiculously powerful abilities that he learned while training with Kashin Koji. Abilities that Code had never seen before. Well, Boruto already knew all of Code's abilities, allowing him to catch Code off guard and humble him pretty quickly. While Boruto might have some more abilities up his sleeve that Code doesn't know about, at the very least he won't get surprised by the Rasengan Uzuhiko again, and will likely be more cautious this time around. At least I'd like to think so. They literally made a point to emphasize Code's cautious nature during the Code arc. Code's arrogance versus Boruto at the beginning of the time skip is excusable because Boruto hadn't earned his caution yet. The last thing Code knew was that Boruto was way weaker than him and had been running away from Code for 2 years. It's like Naruto jumping from his level of power in the Tenchi Bridge arc to the end of the series when he got 6 pet sage mode in the very next arc. If Sasuke fought Naruto again in the next arc under these circumstances, Sasuke's walking into that fight expecting to stomp Naruto again, and he's absolutely getting caught off guard and humbled by Naruto as soon as he shows off his new powers. That's basically what happened to Code here. I'm not saying Code would win in a rematch against Boruto, but he would at the very least do better than last time. What's more interesting though is Code going after Kashin Koji, and I have 3 reasons for this. First, unless Koji became way stronger over the time skip like Boruto, Code should still be stronger than Koji, or at least equal if Koji really did get a lot stronger, meaning they would actually have an interesting battle with important stakes. Because if Koji dies, Boruto loses the ability to predict the future through Koji's 10 Directions future sight, Koji's knowledge on events and concepts that Boruto doesn't really know a lot about yet, and Koji's strategic planning, as well as a second opinion on literally anything. Second, Code and Koji are both former members of Gaara, and Code likely inferred that Koji was a fellow traitor alongside Amano, since Koji just disappeared without a trace, meaning Code would have a strong vendetta against Koji, especially if he finds out that Koji is the one who kickstarted Ishiki's demise by dragging him out of Jigen. And third, Code is going to be very confused when he finds out that Koji is still alive. Remember, Koji is the one person who was left off of Ishiki's hit list, so if Code inferred that Koji was a traitor alongside Amado, he would have naturally concluded that Koji was dead since he wasn't included on Ishiki's hit list and he's been nowhere to be found for the last 3 years. So when Code finally confronts Kashin Koji, he should ask, how are you still alive? Why weren't you included on Ishiki's hit list? Especially given that Ishiki mentioned people like Sasuke and Boruto, who played a much smaller role in Ishiki's death than Kashin Koji. And I'm certain that Code would have a stronger vendetta against Koji, a Gaara traitor who mysteriously disappeared, than Shikamaru, someone who just invited Ada over to the Leaf side, if Code had any suspicion that Koji was still alive. OG fans already know where I'm going with this, but this is the perfect way to come back to the incredible strangeness of Ishiki's message to Code, which I still firmly believe to be manufactured by Amado, and I've made 2 videos about this in the past that I'll put in the description and comments below. Hell, maybe I'll even do an updated video on it adding even more evidence. I've been wondering for a while now how and when they would address Koji's absence on the hit list. It wasn't sure if they were just gonna have Code stumble upon Koji by chance at some point, but this is much better. I much prefer the idea of Code actively hunting down Boruto's accomplice without knowing it's actually Koji, and then seeing his shock upon discovering that Koji is alive, which then transforms into immense rage as he realizes that Koji not only kickstarted Ishiki's demise but also got away with his life and no permanent injuries, which then transforms into confusion as he realizes that Ishiki failed to mention Koji on his hit list despite Koji being one of the two most important factors in his death. This makes me really happy, assuming they go this route anyway. Even if they don't do the Amado thing, the idea of Code hunting down Koji is an interesting and satisfying plot thread for me, and there's a good chance for Code to finally get the major kill a lot of fans have been waiting for, as Koji is not only a character most Boruto fans enjoy, he's also an invaluable asset to Boruto's team with his knowledge of future events, to the point that he almost needs to die for the sake of the story, since he can solve almost every problem by simply knowing how they defeated the enemy and what are the branching futures. In all honesty, as minor as this plot point might seem, this is probably the best part of the chapter. It gives Code something interesting to do within the plot, it serves as a conduit for Code's development as a character, it adds tension by providing a viable means for how Koji could die, and it might even add some interesting Amado lore and continue to build him as an antagonist with a very intricate master plan, which coincides very nicely with the reveal later in the chapter that Amado secretly implanted limiters in Kawaki. This feels like a good writing decision from every perspective. Something else I really liked is the fact that Jura pondered over the idea of eating a chakra fruit himself. Not because he's a greedy mustache twirling villain or because he wants to mess with Code, but because he's just genuinely curious what would happen. And so am I. I've also been wondering what would happen if a Shinju or even a regular Ten Tails ate a chakra fruit. Would they just evolve into a divine tree like when they devour an otsutsuki? Would they transform into a new otsutsuki? Or perhaps their original otsutsuki form if that's how Ten Tails are made? Would they gain sentience like the Shinju did with Code's claw marks? Would they ascend to godhood, meaning that's how Shibai became a god? Would they evolve into something entirely new? Or would they just evolve a little bit over time with each fruit like the otsutsuki? Any of these are possible, and I'm curious which it'll be. If I had to pick, I think I'd be most interested in either the Ten Tails or Shinju reverting back to their original otsutsuki form, if that's indeed how Ten Tails are made, the Ten Tails or Shinju evolving into something completely new, or this being an essential step to attaining godhood, whether it's common knowledge among the otsutsuki or not. I think those three would be the most interesting, but any of the options are fairly realistic. Let me know in the comments which of the options you think are the most interesting ones, and which you think are the most likely, as well as any other possibilities if you have any. Overall, I thought this section of the chapter was by far the best and most engaging from a plot, narrative, and thematic perspective, with Jura continuing to drive this identity theme and Code embarking on his next goal to add some vibrance to his life, and it also has the least amount to critique. There's really only one problem I want to address, and it's not even really a problem with this chapter per se, but more so a major problem with chapter 13 that got even weirder because of this chapter, and it has to do with Jura's reason for leaving in chapter 13. I have a whole video planned to demonstrate the disconnect between plot and story with Jura's reason for leaving as an educational video, so I have no intention of doing an in-depth discussion on this today, but to briefly address the point, Jura told Mamushi they should retreat for two main reasons. First, because Hidari was supposedly gonna rot, and second because their foe was formidable. Not because the discovery of an ally meant that Jura no longer needed to kill Boruto, who he didn't really want to kill if he could help it. Now, as we know, Jura could have very easily sniped Boruto again like 2 milliseconds without Hidari rotting and without Boruto being too formidable to die. So our saving grace would be the idea that Jura didn't want to kill Boruto, so he spared his life the moment the opportunity was granted to him. However, according to Jura in chapter 15, Boruto is a target of elimination for the Shinju, implying that Jura does want to kill Boruto after all, which would mean his reason for leaving without sniping Boruto again real quick makes even less sense than it already did. I highly doubt the other Shinju care what happens to Boruto. They were planning on devouring him anyway, so this is most likely all Jura's decision. With that in mind, The only way this works is if Jura is secretly trying to manipulate Code into killing Boruto's accomplice while knowing that he'll fail to kill Boruto, because Jura doesn't want himself or the other Shinju to risk fighting Kashin Koji, who seems to know everything about them. This is totally fine, but if that is the intent behind Jura's words and actions, it would have made a hell of a lot more sense to have Jura say something indicative of this in chapter 13 when he left in the first place. Instead of talking about Hidari rotting, which will probably never come up again, or talking about how their foe is formidable in reference to Hidari's death, have Jura specify that this ally is the one who truly needs to die by saying something like, "I see," so that's his source of intel on the Thornsoul bulb and such. In that case, all we have to do is eliminate this ally of his. Let's retreat for now. This clearly indicates that Jura has his eyes set on this ally now, and is choosing to let Boruto live in order to soothe his curiosity in the boy and defeat him to the Ten-Tails. So now when we examine Jura's dialogue in chapter 15, we can infer that Jura has ulterior motives behind his mission for Code. While this would reduce the shock value behind the revelation that Jura was manipulating Code all along, we don't need that shock value for any reason, as this is a pretty predictable plot thread, and it completely eliminates the stupid nonsense Jura dialogue when he leaves in chapter 13. There's no reason to manipulate Mamushi into letting Boruto live when Mamushi doesn't care in the first place. He's just gonna listen to Jura's orders anyway. So I definitely think they should have changed the dialogue in chapter 13 no matter what their plan is with Jura and Code moving forward. As far as predictions go, I can't say for certain whether or not Jura is manipulating Code in this regard, since his reason for leaving doesn't make any sense anyway, but I kinda like the idea that Jura is doing this because it fits so beautifully well with the recurring theme that Code is always being used by others, just like Kawaki. But anyway, that's my thoughts on this section of the chapter. Let me know in the comments what you thought about all these topics I discussed, and let me know if there's any other parts of the chapter that you found extremely interesting and want to see me talk about more in future videos. Watch this video here for more of my content, subscribe and like the video if you enjoyed it, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.